Diversity, equity, and inclusion programs across the country are being cut, and research funding is disappearing. Now, what legal action is being taken and what this means for us?
Coming up, the first obstacles the developers of the Inn at Altamont will face in their steep climb of Paris Mountain.
Later in sports, we'll take a look at the men's basketball team's revenge game that happened over the weekend, and we'll take a look into Paladin football and how they're using spring practice to gear up and prepare for the season this fall.
Good morning. I'm Katie McCawley, and you're watching the Nightly News. Let's get right to some of our top stories. Diversity, equity, and inclusion policies have been a major topic of debate in higher education, and recent federal changes are now being felt across the country. Let's send it over to Sidney Lyn, who has the details.
Thanks, Katie. Recent policy changes at the federal level have made an impact at Furman. One of the first noticeable shifts was the way that we discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion on campus. For years, DEI efforts have been made a key part of Furman's identity, even playing a role in the campus tours for prospective students. But now there's talk of DEI-focused discussions being removed from programming. Hope Cook, a member of the admissions ambassador team, has strong feelings on the topic.
And so having to censor our speech possibly in admissions and the school censoring itself in its admissions process seems honestly unfair and misrepresentative, or doesn't represent well what the school values and what we should all be valuing as people, which is inclusion and bringing in experiences that we don't have different than our own that we can learn from.
And it's not just DEI discussions. At some universities, faculty positions with DEI-specific titles are being restructured or phased out. In addition to these structural changes, Furman is also seeing the effects of policy shifts in the research funding. Some grants that once supported scientific research on campus have been canceled. And recently, the American Association of University Professors, also known as AAUP, joined a lawsuit in response to these shifts, which addresses the broader impact of these changes on faculty rights and the autonomy of the university community. An anonymous source, a faculty member at Furman, shared their perspective with me on the situation, but chose to remain unnamed due to the concerns about taking a public stance in the current political climate.
And the Department of Education, the Friday before last, issued a notice based on these executive orders that institutions of higher education have 14 days to comply with eliminating all such programs, or else they're going to be investigated and potentially lose federal funding. So the deadline for that is this Friday. So the background is an extreme level of panic about the financial future Furman and all higher education, which relies on those funds. So we have many millions of dollars of federal funding if you count like all the student financial aid and loans, and without that funding, Furman cannot continue.
As Furman adapts to these evolving policy changes, students and faculty alike are waiting to see what will happen with DEI and higher education as a whole. Thank you. I'm Sidney Lyn with the Nightly News.
Thanks, Sydney. University officials say they remain committed to supporting students and faculty through these changes. Amid recent changes in federal policy, Furman University hosted a listening session to address the concerns and anxieties many in the campus community are feeling. Just Wednesday morning, Furman's senior administrative team gathered in the Watkins Room to listen to Furman community members. The changes from federal policy raised important questions, and this session was a chance for students, faculty, and staff to express their concerns. As said by President Elizabeth Davis in an email sent to the Furman community, it feels like the ground is shifting beneath our feet when it comes to higher education policy. This has left many feeling disconnected and dismissed. The thoughts and feelings shared informed how the university will adapt to these sudden shifts, keeping the community's well-being at the center of their decision-making. While the senior administrative team worked with outside experts and elected officials to navigate these changes, they were clear in their belief that no one knew the needs of the Furman community better than those who live here every day. As we look ahead, conversations like today's will play a crucial role in shaping the university's approach to these challenges. The proposed hotel on Paris Mountain is not only facing some opposition, they may face some zoning issues as well. Our Clancy Carter looked into it.
As you can see on this map, the northern part of the property, outlined in red, is zoned as an environmentally sensitive district in order to protect Paris Mountain. This means the owners could only build about 18 homes on the property. However, the southern part, outlined in orange, is zoned multifamily, meaning they are allowed to build almost 400 residential units. The Divine Group claims building the hotel would benefit the preservation of nature through conservation of 20 acres of land that could otherwise be used for residential development. Ben Allier, who has lived on Altamont Road for 8 years, says that while he has an open mind, he does not think building the hotel is the only or the wisest option.
If you're trying to force one direction by saying, hey, there's only one other option, that's untrue. It's a threat. I've seen enough accidents living here to know that that's only going to increase when you get more new people driving the road. Leaving a New Year's Eve party and you've had a couple of drinks, or you're leaving a wedding. The scars on the trees on this curve are a testament to people's poor judgment. And that's going to increase. That would, because the nature of a hotel is that you have visitors. And so, it's different than it being a neighbor to people, and the traffic that's coming are people going to their houses where they live. The Change.org petition against the development of the hotel, they're closing in on 12,000 signatures, but looking at the verified information for people, so it's people, name and address. Over 1,000 of those signatures are people with a Travelers Rest address, so within the actual boundaries of Travelers Rest. And there's only 8,000 residents as of the last census, so that's a huge chunk of people that are aware of it and that are also against it.
Some Furman students are getting involved.
What this development's going to do is it's going to have a lot of ecological impacts on the environment. It's a home for many, many animals and organisms, and it's a very delicate ecosystem up there. So the hotel's fine. Putting it on top of Paris Mountain is the big issue here, and then going around. So they have to go around and use a backdoor tactic to unzone the land as it's currently zoned as an environmentally sensitive district. It'd be completely different if it was already for residential or commercial zoning. But it's just the way that they're going about this is so sneaky and underhanded.
Us as young people, us as just residents of this area, we have power to stop this.
In order for the zoning to be changed, the Divine Group would have to petition the county council to rezone the northern part of the property. The county must then hold 3 hearings for public comment on the rezoning.
Thanks, Clancy. As of airtime, the Divine Group has not filed the rezoning application. A condemned man makes a rare and dramatic choice. Brad Sigmund, a condemned killer, made the decision to die next month by firing squad. After 3 previous executions in which the inmates were not declared dead for at least 20 minutes. South Carolina reinstated the firing squad as an option in death penalty cases in 2021. Death by firing squad is a method that has not been used in the U.S. in 15 years, as only 3 inmates have been executed this way since 1976. After Sigmund was convicted in 2001 for brutally killing his ex-girlfriend's parents, he is now set to be executed on March 7th of this year. We're turning now to covering the country with an update on the nationwide bird flu outbreak. The United States Department of Agriculture is currently trying to rehire the staff that was previously investigating the bird flu. This comes after the USDA announced it would be, quote, eliminating positions that are no longer necessary. The agency claims it is to align its policy with the efforts of the Department of Government Efficiency. The rehire was prompted after concerns for the rapid spread of the bird flu continued to grow. Now across the pond, Pope Francis remains in critical condition since being admitted to the hospital for respiratory issues in early February. This update comes after blood tests showed signs of kidney failure. but the Vatican claims the signs are not cause for concern, and the Pope's condition is stable. As of yesterday, we're told he has even held some meetings from the hospital. Back here in the States, in New York, Luigi Mangione was back in court on Monday, where prosecutors have been reviewing the evidence for his trial. This comes after an incident back in December, where United Healthcare CEO was shot dead. Mangione is now facing federal charges in the state and has not entered a plea on the federal murder charges. We're told if he is convicted, Mangione is looking at life in prison with no parole. This story is developing, and the next hearing is scheduled in June. 2 Delta planes have been brought down this week. First, a flight from LA had to make an emergency landing after smoke was detected on board. The second is a little closer to home. This one out of Atlanta and heading to Columbia here in South Carolina. The flight swiftly returned to the airport after takeoff when a haze of smoke filled the plane. Delta says no one was injured and they are working to investigate the issues. These both come after a crash in Arizona just last week, where 2 small planes, each carrying 1 passenger, collided in the air, killing both passengers. From the data we've gathered here, there have been over 5 deadly commercial airline crashes this year. Meanwhile, at Chicago Midway, a Southwest plane had a near miss with a small private jet on the runway Tuesday afternoon. In just the first month of President Trump's term, thousands of federal employees have already been laid off. Starting on February 13th, more than 1,000 employees from the Department of Veterans Affairs were fired. Reports indicate that as many as 350 employees who are working on the nation's nuclear weapons program at the National Nuclear Security Administration were also fired. 700 employees in the Department of Health and Human Services have been fired, and nearly 5,000 jobs are at risk. At the Department of Homeland Security, nearly 405 jobs were cut. About 1,000 jobs in the National Park Service were also cut. And lastly, the Defense Department has announced it will fire more than 5,400 employees and put a hiring freeze in place. This list continues and is even impacting local business and government agencies, but the long-term impact of these cuts on government services remains to be seen. Now to an announcement from a major worldwide tech company. Apple is announcing plans to invest $500 billion here in the United States. This comes after President Trump placed a 10% tariff on imports from China, where most of Apple's iPhones are manufactured. We're told this investment includes building a manufacturing facility in Houston and expanding data center operations. Got milk? Well, turns out we got dairy-free milk, and for no upcharge. Good news for all you lactose-intolerant coffee drinkers. Dunkin' Donuts has just announced it'll stop charging extra for non-dairy milk. This motion will go into effect on March 5th and will allow Dunkin' customers at any location to enjoy any alternative dairy options in a drink for no additional charge. Next time you're craving a Frosty and a chicken nugget meal, it may not be a person taking your order at Wendy's. Next time you decide to go through the Wendy's drive-thru, chances are you will get to meet Wendy's employee, Fresh AI. On February 13th, Wendy's CEO, Kirk Tanner, revealed that the nationwide fast food company would be utilizing a voice-enabled artificial intelligence system to take people's orders at up to 600 Wendy's restaurants throughout the country. However, so far, no word of any of those are in South Carolina. Bringing creativity to campus, Furman University's artist in residence, Derek Reese, is showing his exhibition, Daily Bread. Reese's exhibition will be on display in the Rowe Art Building on Furman's campus until March 28th. Furman's art department will also be posting updates every Wednesday on what is happening on campus regarding our new artist in residence on their department Instagram. So be sure to follow them to stay up to date. On February 27th, Furman University's Gospel Ensemble will be performing in Daniel Recital Hall at 6 p.m. for their Black History Month concert. I spoke with the Vice President, Tyler Pearson, to hear about why he loves being a part of the Gospel Ensemble.
I think initially coming into Furman University, I didn't foresee the prospect of being able to find this community within the Black culture on campus. And I'm grateful, eternally grateful, that I have found this community and that it's a free space to express myself, to come together, commune, and then to sing his praises, but also to simply have fun and learn more about what it means to participate in the gospel Black culture.
If you are interested in joining the gospel ensemble or attending a performance, you can get more information from their Instagram at fu_gospel. It has been a busy week for the Paladins. Dixon is here now to share what Furman Athletics has been up to this week.
Thanks, Katie. Over the weekend, the Paladins men's basketball team had an opportunity for sweet revenge against the Keydets of VMI. I had the opportunity to attend the game this weekend. Men's basketball tasted sweet revenge over the weekend as they hosted the Keydets of VMI. The Paladins lost earlier in the season to VMI, but history would not repeat itself as the Dens claimed a 75-71 victory on Saturday. PJ Smith Jr. and Nick Anderson led the offensive attack for the Paladins, both players reaching double-digit point totals on the day. But their success was dependent on a great offensive team effort with 8 different players making marks on the scoreboard. Both teams played a great game, but the Paladins would not be denied, earning their second win in a row. These 2 wins help build momentum for the Paladins as they finish the season this week and start to look ahead to the upcoming Southern Conference tournament. Well, men's basketball team wasn't the only sport earning wins this week, though. Softball had a busy weekend as they hosted Austin Peay, Morehead State, Holy Cross, and Northern Iowa. The Paladins had an average outing, winning 2 games and losing 2 games. But fans and players were excited by the 2 high-scoring games that showcased Furman's true potential. Men's tennis took the courts at number 31 Clemson, falling short in that contest by a score of 4-1. In addition, the team traveled to Queens, North Carolina, where they pulled out a 4-2 victory. After this weekend, the team's record comes out to 3-5 on the season. Women's tennis hit the courts at Elon, where they won in dominant fashion by a score of 4-1. The 37th ranked Paladin team climbs to 6-2 on the season. We already heard about the men's basketball team's triumph over the Keydets this weekend, but the women's team also saw action as they squeezed out a home victory against Mercer 72-70 on Thursday, but fell to Samford on Saturday by a score of 62-73. It's springtime, and that means that Paladin football is starting up spring ball. Grant Robinson has the latest on Paladin football and how their spring practice is going.
Furman football started out spring football this past week, and the Dens are looking to make some big strides to propel them into the fall.
Last season, the Dens struggled, finishing the season 3-8, but hope to get back on track this upcoming season. The team has brought in a handful of early enrollees and grad transfers for the spring semester and believe that a good spring can lead to their success in the fall. Justin Hartwell believes the work will show in the fall.
I think a good thing for us that we can use in the spring to propel us in the fall really is just bonding. A big thing last year was we were a super young team and no one really had played with each other and just got that team chem. And I'm personally a big believer in chemistry, especially the position I play, safety. You have to be able to talk with your other DBs around you and know everybody's on the same page. So just building up that team chemistry, everybody getting comfortable with each other, understanding how each other's strengths and weaknesses. I feel like that, just really getting that chemistry and cohesiveness together, I feel like that will really help us in the fall coming up.
The Paladins will prepare to wrap up their spring practices with their traditional spring game. The game will be held on March 15th at 1 p.m. in Paladin Stadium.
Thanks for that, Grant. The men's tennis team this week has a doubleheader on Friday as they host UNC Greensboro and North Greenville University. Those game times are 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. respectively. Women's lacrosse will be back on the field Friday night at 6 p.m. against Delaware State, where they will look to stay unbeaten on the season. They will have a day to rest before they are back on the turf Sunday afternoon for a showdown with Mercyhurst at 2 p.m. Everyone is looking forward to spring break next week, but for those on campus and those that are local, there are still plenty of athletic events to catch during your time off. No events may be more important than men's and women's basketball as they make the journey up to Asheville, North Carolina to play for their respective SoCon Conference crowns. If you have the time, Asheville is only about an hour drive from campus, and I know our teams could use the support. The women's tournament will begin on Thursday, March 6th, and the men's will begin on Friday, March 7th. Also, while we are gone, softball will be in action as they host the Furman Round Robin Invitational, facing off twice against Youngstown State and Gardner-Webb in Pepsi Stadium. Those game dates and times are listed here for you. Men's tennis will be back in action as soon as we return from break as they take on Samford at home at 3 p.m. on Tuesday, March 11th. Well, Katie, a much better week in sports for the Paladins this week. Many more wins than we had last week, which isn't really hard to do when you don't win any games.
Right. So yeah, I knew this week would be our week.
Absolutely. Well, do you have any exciting plans for spring break?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going home. I'm from Florida, so I'm going to chill by the beach and hang with my family. What about you?
Fantastic. I will be at the beach as well, but I will be doing some fishing with some friends of mine, hoping to catch some massive fish that hopefully we can take home and eat, but we'll see how that goes.
Right. Well, we have to go get ready for spring break.
You are absolutely right.
And I hope everyone else has a great spring break. And now we will leave you with some beautiful scenes from our campus.
Well, Katie, a much better week in sports for the Paladins this week. Many more wins than we had last week, which isn't really hard to do when you don't win any games.
Right. So yeah, I knew this week would be our week.
Absolutely. Well, do you have any exciting plans for spring break?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going home. I'm from Florida, so I'm going to chill by the beach and hang with my family. What about you?
Fantastic. I will be at the beach as well, but I will be doing some fishing with some friends of mine, hoping to catch some massive fish that hopefully we can take home and eat, but we'll see how that goes.
Right. Well, we have to go get ready for spring break.
You are absolutely right.
And I hope everyone else has a great spring break. And now we will leave you with some beautiful scenes from our campus.
Heck yeah, that was perfect. One take.
News.
We're starting again. Katie was muted.
Oh. I was going to say it wasn't moving, so.